Hello, 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 everybody. I'm Coach Deb. I want to welcome you to I'm Not Okay Why. Tune in now, those that are yet now a part of www.reallyrealradio.com. Go ahead and tag your friends. Go ahead and call up your friends and family and let them know that I'm Not Okay Why radio show is on and popping. I'm Coach Deb, and I have with me the panel to I'm Not Okay Why. And just to give you a breakdown for those of you that are new to the radio show, I'm Not Okay Why, of course, is a panel of amazing people that are professionals in different areas, and they share different views about the things that we're not okay with in our community. And what we're hoping to do is create dialogue and conversation in the homes so that we can all come together and heal. There's much work to be done in our community. Tune in each and every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. and listen to the amazing topics, different topics on this actual radio show. We're going to get it started. I'm really, really kind of, I'm kind of antsy, y'all, because I'm feeling some kind of way. What we're talking about today is holding leaders accountable, local government, community support, and advocacy. That's what we're talking about today. So, Xavier, hello to you today, sir. Forgive me. I'm heavy. My heart is heavy. And Dr. Josh, you're on, sir. My heart is heavy today because we're going to talk about our Haitian community. How are y'all doing?
Well, doing well.
I'm good. I can't complain.
Well, you know what? As we let's go ahead and get it started because I have pondered and I have prayed, and I just want the conversation to start. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Josh. Sir, I want you to share what it is that you have noticed with the Haitian community coming over here, trying to cross the border, have made their way over here, under the bridge. There's a lot of activity that took place this week. Men on horseback with their whips, and the sad part about it is they're over here trying to get help because of the catastrophic weather, no fault of their own, and also the assassination of their president. Things have been crazy, sir. Share your view and perspective about that.
I just can't. It's grievous. That's the easiest word to say. Um, there's so much stuff that's going on, but you got to think about it. And I hate to be that guy, uh, but I am going to be that guy.
Be that guy, sir.
Because this is not something that's new, and I think with this culture that we're in now, we're so shocked at stuff that goes on as though it never happened before. And this is not something that's brand new that's taking place when people come to look for help, especially when they are of a melanated um, persuasion of skin. Um, is it's always like this. It's always. I mean, heck, we ain't even got to look at another culture. We can look at just how things were handled with the hurricanes in New Orleans and how
Right.
things were happening. You know what I'm saying? And the things that was lacked, the things that was promised. And so I don't think it. I know it's gonna sound bad, but I don't. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by any of the things that's happening. Not surprised though the whips and the horseback. I ain't surprised about none of this stuff. And that's a sad thing to say, to be able to say straightforward and without having to bat your eyes. Certain things we kind of be in a space where we kind of used to blush at stuff because we feel unsecure about it and weren't so sure. But this stuff is going on and it's been happening, and against what everybody believes, it's not going to change until we change. And what that means is we as people have to get out of the space of looking for government officials to be our saviors.
There you go.
And I'm just going to make it plain like that because we see this happening. And this is not nothing new to the Haitians. This is not nothing new to the Haitians that they've been in scarcity, that they've been in the space where they're marginalized and being mishandled, misused, and that's a sad truth about the culture of African Americans or any of the descendants that come from Africa around the world. There has been a notion or a mentality that's been expressed and has been accepted that we aren't to be respected, that we aren't to be in a space where we're honored as equals, as men that God has made us to be, women that God has made us to be. It's always been a struggle for other people to recognize the similarities outside of the skin, because the first thing they do is see is the skin. So they've bought into this whitewashing mentality that anything that's not pure, and I'll use that terminology, of this type of sector, anything else outside of that is beneath them, and that's a sad truth that's going on. Um, it's interesting because we're talking about the Haitian migrants, but this opens the conversation greater than just the Haitian migrants. I mean,
Yes, it does. I'm glad you
it
said that.
is yeah, it definitely opens us up because I mean we just I'm looking at even America in the space of our homeless, the poverty stricken areas. I grew up in the hood, you know what I'm saying? And so, I remember, going to the store with food stamps to buy groceries, because there were not systemic racism that was in place that did not give us all the opportunities, or our parents the opportunities to really better themselves and put themselves in a better position, even as ownership and home ownership and different things, that we could have re finance homes and sent our kids to schools and college and everything for greater education, different things. There's a lot of things that we were systematically oppressed in. And so, when we look at this picture, the Haitians coming over, the only problem I have is that we have people that's within our own culture who have taken upon the narrative that others have when looking at these people. They don't, and the saddest part about all this is the fact that we see this stuff going on, we hear this stuff going on, and nobody's losing any sleep on it because
Wow.
it's so natural. It's like instead of us normalizing excellence,
Normalize. That's the
we've
word.
normal
That's it.
we have normalized the space of lack and the space of this place of
My
tribulation and
God.
trials. We've gotten to that space that we have, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think we mentioned it last week with Dr. Xavier as well. How the African descendants, how we're some of the most resilient people, and no matter what we go through, we find a way to be resilient, no
Uh-huh.
matter what it is. But within that, I believe that great quality has also hindered us, because what I mean by that is instead of us rising up after seeing the history, we sit and we wait for stuff to happen so we can respond to it. And instead of us being initiators and proactive and establishing our own government, establishing our own ways of protecting ourselves and helping ourselves and building community amongst ourselves all around the world. And I know we're talking about the Haitian community, but I'm talking about Americans because we do have
Amen.
some more accessibility than people around the world. We have a little bit more accessibility to what we have access to as relates to resources and jobs and different things of that sort. But it's like, at what point do we stop thinking just my four and no more?
My,
and
my, my.
understand that there's a greater call to humanity that's crying out all around the world. I mean, we look at the Haitian community right now, the Haitians coming over, migrating, but even in Canada, you look at in Canada, African descendants up there, they go through some of the worst situations. It's all around the world. It happens all around the world. And because we don't organize and we don't come together, and we continue to kind of just be selfish in a certain and this is talking about celebrities as well. You
Uh-huh.
know, the influence we have as celebrities, a lot of them have just gotten out that escape mentality, kind of like I just want to make it to heaven. So they've made the heaven with their resources and they've forgotten about everybody else. And that's something that's a issue. So it's so much that's going on into this that feeds into the environment of the mentality that says it's okay for this to go on, and it continues to puff it up. And then with us in our selfishness, we kind of just we might as well be the ones with the whip. I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth.
Be transparent, bro.
Yeah, we might as well be the ones. We it's kind of like what we talk about. We talk about our counterparts, the Caucasian persuasion, them not standing up and saying something to the other people when they hear the racism, when they hear the racist comments, different things, and we talked about how even if you don't say anything, you're still condoning it. So even if you may not be doing it, but you're still not saying anything against it, and that's how we are. We're the same. We're guilty of the same thing. So I'll submit right here for a moment.
You know, sir, you just made it make sense. You know what I'm saying? See, what we have to understand is that nothing is new.
Right.
It's just that when situations arise, you know, when things happen, that's when things are exposed. It's like the water has washed, you know, the top away. That it has opened that thing up.
Right.
You know what I'm
I,
saying?
I want to say this too. What don't help the situation also is the fact that this pandemic is going on. Because now I got an excuse to try to quarantine you, quote
I
unquote,
have an excuse.
to put you in this category and keep you over here and say, oh, this is for the safety of all the people. This is for the safety of the American nation, and this is what we'll believe in. We'll buy into that. We'll buy into that because that's what the news is feeding us. So, all right. Tag.
Wow. You know, Xavier, you listen. I know you over there like with your hand under your chin, sir. What is your
Mhm.
view?
I was just listening. I too think that this is not something that is new. I think we have to put this in historical, political, and social context to understand that this has always been happening. This has been the foreign policy slash domestic policy of the United States for decades. That I remember being a little boy and Elian Gonzalez could come
Mm,
over, but it had a huge storm in the same area, and Elian Gonzalez became the poster child for children trying to make it over here from places that were allowed to claim and partake in asylum, while the darker skinned, more melanated people were sent back or locked up or arrested. Um, the imagery of white men or lighter hued men on horses with bullwhips is nothing that's new to us people who were
mercy.
born and are descendants or ascendants of African people. We've been experiencing this. I think what we need to understand is that the police force was not created to maintain law and order. It was maintained to create. It was created to maintain slavery. And so the first police that we see in this country, who were riding on horses and using whips and guns, were used to catch slaves who had run away. They were
Say
not
that.
used to keep order. And so what we're seeing is we're seeing not so much a I don't think in my opinion, I don't think it's so much of a revealing as I think it's we're seeing a return. Um, because people who are losing power are trying to hold on to power. And so at this point, we said a long time ago that the revolution would not be televised, and I disagree. I think it will be televised, and I think it is being televised. but it's not being televised as we thought it would be. We thought it would be on television with cameras, but now it's on phones with cameras. And so everything is being exposed or being shown, and we're just seeing a return to that. Lastly, I'm going to go into this whole idea and then lay it into a context with Haiti. Haiti, this is about um, Haiti embarrassed Europeans. You go back and
Say that.
you go back, you go back into history, and you look in history, Haiti embarrassed Europeans. Napoleon Bonaparte was considered one of the greatest minds, although he stole everything that he used from a man out of Africa by the name of Hannibal. And so he stole all of Hannibal's ideas and practices, same thing as Alexander the Great did. And he reused those things that Hannibal and Alexander the Great had used in previous years. And he used those same types of principles to almost conquer the world. He gets to Haiti, and Haiti becomes the undoing of his taking over and creating this great royal French empire. And no other Europeans dared come into Haiti after Napoleon was thwarted by this small island. And they used something that we talked about last week. So nothing, to me, nothing that God allows us to talk about is unconnected, because the Haitians used their voodoo and their African indigenous practices to roll back the French. And the French could not understand why they were becoming so sick and why they were losing and why this guerrilla warfare that the Haitians were using. And so without going too far and going too deep into it, Haiti stands as a reminder that Europeans were not as great as they thought they were.
Yes.
And Haiti, and so we don't want to support Haiti, because if we support Haiti, we remind them that this country was able to withstand all of the technological advances of Europeans that they had stolen and used to take over and try to control the world, that Haiti was able to stand back. And Haiti stayed 100% Black, 100% African ascended people controlled. And it's still to this day, all of the embargoes, all of the things we do to Haiti, and it still survives because it is resilient, and they do rely on something that is greater than white folks' Christianity.
That's right.
And so what we see now is nothing new, is that you are hated because I can't control you and I can't beat you. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to deny you, but all it does is make Haiti stronger. And so that's my views, that's my thoughts. And I'll stop there.
He brought something up that was very, very good, and I was actually leaning towards this and thinking about that too. That it's amazing, the Black culture in America bought into the idea, especially those who are this Christian descendants, that their families were induced to believe in the Christianity. They were demonized. We were taught to demonize Haitians. We were taught to say, "Oh, they doing that black magic, voodoo," and then you have even people today, to this point, to this day, that are talking about kingdom work and kingdom assignments and stuff, and they still go down there with that same mindset that this is a dark kingdom that the devil himself lives in, or but now watch the spin, the art of the narrative, the art of the spin. It's easy for me to demonize that because I don't appreciate the fact of what Dr. Xavier just brought up. The fact that you thought the only way they had to do this was they had to do something dark magic. They had to do something this way. It couldn't be the natural spirit of them, the resilience to stand up. And those who know their God shall receive power and do great exploits. We don't see it from that standpoint. We see it from the narrative that's been taught to us. That's if they're not saying Jesus' name the way we say it, then it's wrong. Then it's off. Then it's not God. It's not this. And so you have this whole spiritual side of it that is a major, let me say it like this: the misunderstanding of the spiritual nature of what these people represent. That you have people that are of our descendants, that's even the millennials and Generation Z, different ones that are raising up, that our parents, even the baby boomers, received that message that they were evil or that they did something that was off or something that's not right about them. And so that notion and that lens has been passed down throughout the
Yes, it
generations.
has.
And so now we're talking about a situation that's going on now, that's present to us right now in our time. But the problem is we're still looking through the dirty lens that was passed through us. And until we change the lens, we won't see just humanity, that humanity needs humanity to stand together in order for us to fulfill the full potential and the purpose that God intended for all of humanity as it relates to the entire cosmos. That space, you got to know that God, we serve a universal God, and in that space, that and I some people make me think I'm crazy, but I just believe God got a bigger plan for the earth than just us here fighting each other. I'm
Right.
sorry, I don't think that
Right.
that was just His plan for us to keep pointing out the differences and shooting each other. I'm looking at some
And
of
we're
these
all the
pictures.
same. We're all black.
The same thing. We come from the same origin. And I'm looking at these pictures, and I'm sitting here looking at this stuff, and saw the news clips and stuff
Yeah.
from the stuff that's going on, and I'm seeing the delight, almost as though there was a primitive nature that begins
Lord,
to
Lord.
rise up out of these people that are moving this way. It's like,
Lord, Lord.
what makes you think it's okay to use a whip on a human being? Like, why is that okay?
And they
Like,
even
even
made
in the
excuses
21st
for it.
century, no, there's no excuse. There's never been an excuse for that. There's never been an excuse for that. And the crazy part about it is, you got people that think it's okay with their excuse. They think that those excuses are justifiable, and that's what's wrong with us. That
Can I
mentality.
say something?
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
it has always been our own people that have sold us out.
That part right
Yes,
there, bro. That part right there.
Europeans could not have possessed us in Africa if our own people had not have shown them how to get through the bush.
yes,
Um, hate. I hate this because I'm a history teacher by trade. I'm a theologian. I'm a preacher. I'm a Christian. Christianity is not a white man's religion. It was created in Africa. It was created in Africa. It was created, and I'm going to say it till the day the Lord takes my last breath. Christianity was created. It is an African indigenous religion. It was taken and co-opted by Europeans as a tool to be able to control a spiritual
right.
people.
Teach, sir.
See, they understood that we were spiritual, and they understood our power. Voodoo was us taking and combining our understanding of spirit in everything. See, the Bible talks about that everything that was made by God and is made by God, and it was
That's right.
good. If that is true, then God's spirit is in all things and is created
Yes.
by all things, if we really want to go there. Voodoo and African indigenous religions understands that and takes it in a step beyond that most of us who have been westernized cannot understand. And so when we look at this, and we look at the lens is not necessarily that we as African people don't understand what's going on. The lens is that we have been given this Eurocentric lens. And so we sell ourselves short because Master's water is always wetter and Master's ice is always colder. And so we have sold ourselves short because we're looking through a lens that is not the lens that we initially, spiritually, emotionally, and culturally had, but we have bought into it because, again, like I started off saying, because nobody think I'm rambling, is that we sell ourselves short. They were never able to possess us until we started to sell ourselves short because they understood our spirituality, and they took that and used it and twisted it because they understood how much power our spirituality gave.
Right. That's right.
So when we look at these pictures, that's why I say it's not a revealing of anything new. It's a return to what they knew worked. They are showing us that I'm going to hold on to this power and I'm going to use the tools of old because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so they're just going back to what worked.
That's right. That's right.
And so if we go back to what worked in Haiti, because I don't have time to argue with Christians who don't read about voodoo and voodoo.
What did he say?
I don't have time for Christians who go to fly-by-night schools who did not study, but they went to a school and paid some money, and now they got degrees, and now they want to argue with me because they did not read and study. That voodoo It's the same thing that you do when you lay hands on somebody.
That's
It's
right.
the same thing you do when you call
Oh,
on God and you land on your bed and the tears are rolling backwards and not hitting the ground. And you calling on God and you making up and you hear somebody say, well, you need to go drink some 3 6s because your head hurt. That's what Voodoo said. Take what we had, take what was in nature, take those medicines and pray, and then use those things to call upon the spirit that is in all things and that is submitted to the great God to heal us. But because of that, we lose. And so I'm getting to my last point. When we take and use this lens of Eurocentric thought and idea to view God and to view ourselves, we then begin to diminish the humanity of those who don't fit into what we say. So if they have no humanity, then we have no heart towards them being hurt and harmed.
Truthfully, that's the only sting or power that this Eurocentric Christianity has.
right.
Is that right there, that lens, because with us being the descendants, I like how you said yes, ascendants. I like that. The ascendants of a resilient people that, in spite of even the message that was given to us, that continue to teach us that we were less than them, even from that standpoint of the spirituality. That you got two different things going on, and as if you're absolutely right, my brother. Um, they understand the problem with us is we don't study to show ourselves approved unto God. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about this necessarily reading information, but reading the information of humans, the habits, studying the movements and the patterns. And this is one thing that they have over us. I will say that, because they have years of documented information of study of us. They literally, for a
They studied
while,
us. You're right about it.
literally tried to see what makes us tick
That's right.
by putting us in these camps and doing all these different experiments and different things. So they understand us a little bit better than we understand ourselves. Those of us who are unlearned or unstudied. And I'm saying all this to say they understood why they had to use this type of radical slavery or enslavement through faith, through the space of theology and different things, because they understood that we are spiritual beings, and no matter where we are, no matter who we are, how we're born and where we come from, automatically innate within us, our DNA, there is a connection to the divine that we do have, and there's a
Because we are
search.
divine.
Hello, hello, we are divine, and so because of that space, they understand that, and the Bible is very clear. It says learn from those the wicked, the sons of the world. They're wicked, but they're wiser. They're wiser. They understand some things because they know that there is a lack innate. We gotta study. We gotta do our due diligence to get above these people, because no matter what we do, for some reason they always end up on top. So we got to figure this out. So there's a space of them studying, and then the other thing that they are connected. They connect and they share information. We'll know something and don't want to share it with each other. We keep it to ourselves. We don't we share with just a handful of people, but we don't make it our business to make sure that everybody who are movers and shakers and influencers, that are for this, that they're in that space. And so these are some of the things that we have to get over. I understand that systematically, we were put against ourselves. We were put against those who have lighter hues and those who are darker, during that time of slavery, different things of that sort. But we got to get past that. We have to get to a place that we understand it, we study it, and learn from it, and make a conscious decision. That's what I want to get to, is to be decisive and intentional to make sure I'm not practicing that colorism, and I'm making sure that I'm putting myself in a position to help my fellow brother, my fellow sister, to see things from a different perspective by having those conversations, but also leading into those conversations about what I do, how I practice, how I live my life. When we begin to get into that space, then we'll see a change happen. We'll see something begin to rise up out of the ashes, no matter what was brought forth. Now, then you got a whole generation of people that just want to wait to see what's going to happen. Well, you got some people that's out there thinking, well, all this mixing and mingling of the blood and everything, soon everybody's gonna be brown. And so, yeah, I've heard people actually say, well, we ain't got to worry about that because soon everybody's gonna be brown. Well, the truth of the matter is we got some years before we see that. So what are we gonna do? We're just gonna sit here and wait. We're gonna swallow our thumbs, or are we gonna be intentional? Are we gonna bring forth change? We have no right to complain if we're not willing to change. We have to be willing to do something different to get different
That part.
results.
So the Bible says this. It says that God made humanity, and God said, "Let us." And I'm not gonna go down that road.
Come on.
Let us make man, Adam, which translates to man, humanity.
Yes.
Humanity. Let us make humanity in our image. One of the things we have lost is not only the ability to identify and to connect to the humanity of other people, is we've also lost our ability to connect with the divinity of other people because
That's good.
we have bought into Eurocentric thoughts of capitalism. So when you go back and you talk about us not sharing this thing, we keep talking about let's commodify, let's share our knowledge, but then we're gonna charge a premium. See, what they'll do is they'll get the information, share it, and everybody will come up. And then we're wondering why we can't, because we got a few folk who know it, but they're trying to commodify it so they can make $1 off of it instead of making what they make and then let everybody else come up, because we are afraid of all of us being great because we've bought into this Eurocentric idea. So if I have a knowledge, why am I charging my brother and my sister when we all struggling?
Mercy.
And so when we look at the Haitians, I know people thinking we're not really talking, but we are, is that Haiti has been struggling for decades. And the Haitians have been trying to build up, but those of us who have the resources and the knowledge, we won't go help them because it is not profitable. But what does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul in the process? And so we have lost the soul. One of my great favorite writers wrote a book called The Souls of Black Folk. And so we have lost our soul as Black folk because we're too busy trying to appease and please white folk. And so we allow them to ride on horses to beat our brothers. And we have this fake outcry. And then 2 weeks later, we're back asleep. We saw George Floyd. George Floyd should never die. Martin Luther King should never die. And I'm not talking about the physical death. I'm talking about what they worked for. And it took us 70 years, 50 years, 60 years after Martin Luther King's death to have another movement again when he had already laid the foundation for it. It took George Floyd down. And so we have this outcry and we do it in spurts because we don't want to acknowledge the humanity and the divinity. Now, I'm not saying everybody's going to be your friend. I'm not saying everybody's going to hang out with you because if you know Zay, you know I ain't pushing that. But what I am saying is, if I can't help you, I'm not going to harm you.
My God.
That's right. That's right. You know the crazy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In our communities, to pull it up and to grasp each other and say, you know what, we may not always agree, but at least we have this commonality. Because really, what we're understanding is that patriarchy, racism, sexism, heteronormativity, all of those things are intersectional, and they intersect. And when we are overly patriarchal, we eventually become racist, and then we become colorist, and then we become sexist, and then we become we begin to discriminate against those who are not heteronormative.
Right.
And so until we can begin to say, you know what, whatever you are, whatever you have, whatever is your thing, I see beyond that, because the one thing we have in common is that we are human and we are made in the image of the divine.
That's right. That's right. You know, one of the things. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. It's the pauses that's what getting me. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm a Baptist preacher, so you got to have a pregnant pause.
Yeah. You got the cadence. I got to catch the
Y'all
cadence.
doing it tonight, though.
Go ahead.
Y'all doing it tonight.
You have to be able to come together and connect, and you have to be able to bring it together. That I don't care what your ism is or your it is, that I'm going to come together with you. And that's the problem in the Black community, and that's the problem in the Black church. I love the Black church, but there are some preachers who won't talk to me because I do support African indigenous religion. Because I do believe that if I'm going to fight for justice, I can't just be fighting for Black folk. I got to fight for folk. And so folk have said all types of stuff. And let other folks say, and it all ties into what we're talking about. And they let folks say stuff about them. They said they were friends of mine. They said they were friends of my family. But they let folks say stuff about us because I agreed with certain things or I stood up for certain things. Why? Because they no longer saw my humanity and my divinity. And I can use me. I mean, I'm not bitter, but I'm just using that as an example. And that's what we're seeing with Haitians. Because we don't understand where they come from. And I've heard people say that, oh, well, that's just God paying them back because of voodoo. Well, do you not know that same God who you saying paying them back is the same God that answered them when they prayed and they kicked the French out?
That's right.
And they created the only republic that was owned and controlled in the Western Hemisphere by African people. That was the same God. The same God that answered you when you were sick is the same God that answered them. The same, that's and then people have also said the same thing about New Orleans because of many of those same Africans who didn't make it to the Caribbean, they made it to New Orleans in the South, and they practiced those things. You go into the coastal areas of Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi and New Orleans, and you'll see some of those pockets of African indigenous thought and religion. Why? Because those people came right off that boat and they brought it and they saved it and they created it. And those are places where folks still have not been able to get rid of all those Black folk in those areas. They've been trying to get Black folk out of New Orleans. Them Black folk come right back. Katrina, they thought it was going to be a change. The Black folk, because they're able to identify their humanity and their divinity. And I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna let you talk. I'm sorry.
And that. No, you right on. I'm in agreement with you. And that's the reason why they let the levees. Let me not say that. I don't want to say that. I mean, well, I said it already. It's already out there. But that's why these things happen the way they happen. You know, one day we're gonna wake up. One day we're gonna wake up and we're gonna pay attention that the media is not our friend. We're gonna find out that they're not a reliable source and they are controlled. And we cannot just agree just because we see it on television. And we cannot agree with the narrative just because they say it on television. One day we're going to think for ourselves. I pray that day is closer than what we're seeing right now, but we're entering into that space. One of the things I think one of the greatest injustices that happened, even with because you brought up Martin Luther King, my brother, the movement, the NAACP, and all the things they were doing, and all the different people and different programs that were working with them, working together. One thing that I hated that happened was there was no accountability that was held as a standard after King passed. And that's why we see this movement kind of dwindles down. And there are those who believe, that certain things happen a certain type of way. Conspiracy. Some people say conspiracy. I don't think conspiracy. I think truth seekers is what I call them, because they seek after the truth. But you have this functionality that's going on. These things that are happening that goes on, and no one talks about it. Anybody who begins to awaken, and I think Dr. Xavier, you said this on last week about even Malcolm and how his position changed, and how Martin, his position changed, their mentality, their lens, and how they saw the last moments of their lives, and that's when they became a problem, because now they're becoming militarized, right? They're becoming now they're a threat. Now they can sway things, and this is what goes on. Anybody's a power. We don't protect our own, man. We gotta start doing that. We got to start protecting our own by education, by sharing of information. We talk about everything else. We do everything on Twitter TikTok and all of those stuff. We got this challenge and that challenge. Where's the challenge that challenges our intellect, right? Not just our emotions, not just our a moment of happiness, a moment of foolishness. When do we begin to challenge our intellect to come to another place, to see beyond the parameters of what has been spoken? We just it's crazy. It's really crazy because it's a very touchy subject, and it feeds into everything that's going on in society. Classism is one of those things as well. People, they're trying to wipe out the middle class because the middle class really has a lot of power right now. But we have to rise up, we got to awaken, and come out of space of just trying to, like you said, just trying to build my own personal kingdom. I think that's another problem with this gospel that's being preached right now. It's about us. It's about God wants to bless you so you can be blessed, and then He'll pour out a blessing on other people through you. But in the same token, that place and position, one thing that I studied and I saw in the first century church is they all had all things in common, and we forget that they literally was in a trusted space. They sold all they had and came and gave it, and nobody lacked nothing. And out of all the preaching we've done, we still miss that. We still miss the space of creating a safe space through our teachings and through our habits and through the way we live, to build that type of safe community, to be in that space that we don't have to go out to look for nothing because everything we need we already have access to, and we're connected in that space. And that's the thing that we miss a lot of times, because each person in the culture, in the community, has a part to play. And once we realize that and accept that and respect and honor. I like what you said, the humanity and the divinity that's within all man. We'll begin to see things from a different perspective. But right now, it's the man, the lens is dirty right now, man. We gotta change it. We gotta change it, and it's gotta be by force. It cannot be just passive. This passive aggressiveness is another pet peeve of mine. Y'all pray for me, because we're so passive aggressive with our message. We're so passive aggressive with what we say. We don't want to offend nobody.
Yeah, yeah.
My job is not to just to make you happy with everything I'm saying to you. Truth can hurt your feelings at times. It's a difference in me trying to hurt your feelings with truth, but truth can be hurtful at times. And I think that is necessary, because I've learned through my mentors throughout my time of my life. One of the things they taught me was pain doesn't come in your life to be painful. It comes to show you where you need to be, where there needs to be adjustments. And so sometimes we need to say the hurtful truth to cause people to be awakened to say there needs to be some adjustments. There needs to be some change. And we got to change it. It's not going to happen. Everybody's waiting for the president to do it. Listen, Linda, the president is a hired office that has his own interests that he has to submit to based upon who really runs this country. And I'm sorry to tell you that Santa Claus ain't real, but Santa Claus ain't real, because you're waiting for that and you thinking the voting is going to do this, the voting is going to do that. Listen to me. I know this is going to hurt your feelings. If it has not helped already up until this point, out of all the people we've elected, out of all the promises that's been made, whether it be local government, whether it be municipal, statewide, whether it be on a federal level, we see a trend. We see a trend. Now, that's not an indictment to everybody, because there are certain people that are actually moving in their community, trying to help the community do different things. That's not an indictment against them. But overall, you got to understand what the system was built for. The system itself was built to protect its own interests. Just like you just said about the police. The first policings were these Ku Klux Klan people that's flowing in that space, and their one job was to protect the property or to return property back to its owners. So it's the same concept. When we look at the law, when the way the law is written, even going back to the amendments, one of the most fascinating shows. I don't know if I should say this. I'll say it anyway. One of the most fascinating shows that I saw was um, Will Smith did on Netflix this series called the Amend 14, and was talking about the 14th Amendment and how it changed everything. It shifted everything. But in this particular program, he talks about, and all the people that's enlisted with him, they talk about how law was written. It was written to protect those who look like the ones that wrote it.
Man,
And
come on.
that's what was established, and that's the way it was written, and that's how it was seen. And it wasn't until later on, years later, that you begin to see these change and this rise up. You got women's rights and all these things that begin to rise up, that begin to push the element, push the envelope as related to how we were seen. Because the only people that were seen as valuable people or valued individuals were white men. It is what it is.
Okay.
Women and the black culture, they were not. They were second class citizens. And so this is the way the law. And I need to say, I'm saying this on purpose because there are still laws that are being adhered to that has that same language and that same interpretation that will not be challenged until somebody challenges, until someone rises up and say, "Nah, this is what was going on," because there's an ongoing fight that's going on. And so I just think that we have to. Some people can say it's militarized. You becoming militant and all that other stuff. You whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, we cannot continue to look to our masters to save us, the masters of this government, the masters of this country. And the sad part about it, I'm saying that is because people around the world are looking at America as though the bee's knees. It's the best. It's the best thing. Haiti right now, I would say this. Haiti will be in a place that they wouldn't need no services and no assistance if they were not barred out of receiving that. They were literally they were literally blackballed from receiving any
I
type
was
of
waiting for
import
you to say
export,
That's what I said
which
earlier. The
right.
embargoes. The
That's
embargoes. That's
right.
what I said
That's
earlier.
right. So they literally blocked every type of resources. So even the natural resources that was in Haiti to come out, to ship out, that could have been used as monetary gain for their government and for the establishment of their country, all that was shut down because of what my brother just said. I'm just agreeing with what you said, bro.
No, I was
But
agreeing with you. I was
let
saying, yeah.
me step in because I'm gonna let y'all finish. I love the dialogue. For the people that are listening and just really enjoying this conversation, I'm believing that what I'm about to share is gonna make sense to the mindset of the evil one, of these people that you're talking about, and hopefully, you know, we will just be open to get it. It's like, okay, finally, that it's like that light will come on, because even now they have a 20,000-mile fence with military, guarding these human beings. They
Crazy.
haven't had showers. A lot of the women are on administrations. They are pregnant, having babies with no medical care. Very, very inhumane situations that are going on, and these are things that are happening to them, but yet they did not happen to the Afghans that were
Mm.
received over here. It was like 40 to 70,000 of those that were received over here, and they were treated like human beings. But the Haitians, from what I'm reading, it's about maybe 30% less than 30% that has come over, even in this country, before the catastrophic weather, before the assassination of their president. So you say a lot of these people, they're over here to get help. They're just over here to get help. But you know what? The way y'all are talking, it's like it's revenge. It's like
Mm-hmm.
revenge is being, brought against our people because of all that you all have shared. I pray that everybody is listening and listening good. I pray that their ears are open to the knowledge that y'all have dropped, because I'm telling you, it's making a whole lot of sense to me, because see, the beginning of this thing, for what I understand, because I got this information from a sister, her name is Jessie Wu, and she's a Haitian herself. And I'm talking about, it's an outcry. She's working with Dr. Jamal Bryant. She says a lot of the people were seeking protection and seeking asylum. There was a lot of political unrest in Haiti. And of course, we understand. But she said it started out that they all were, actually they traveled to Chile and Brazil. And these countries offered them asylum and protection, but it was a setup, my brothers. It was a setup, because when they got through, they offered them asylum if they worked in their factories and if they worked in their fields and all that kind of stuff. So what they did was they migrated over here, and with their population, right? And what ended up happening was, when they were done working, they kicked them out. They kicked them out, and not only did they kick them out, they took their papers. They took their papers, y'all. So so these very same people, based off of what Jessie Wu says, these very same people are in Texas, and they have migrated through Canada. They made their way to Texas, and a lot of these people don't have papers. That are here now, being treated like dogs. Everybody's being treated the same. Papers or not, they're being treated like dogs. They're in these camps with cloth on top of them, y'all. Not tin, but the some type of cloth. And if it rains, they'll get rained on. They went over there to look at the conditions, and see, based off of what y'all are telling me, is this revenge? Is this revenge? Because they did not treat the Afghans like that. They gave those people humane treatment. Come on now.
Yeah, and that's what I was leading to, or I implied it. I didn't. But it's revenge. It's revenge because you have embarrassed us. I do believe that I'm a political science major. I do believe that voting is important. I do believe that voting, because if it wasn't important, they wouldn't try so hard to keep us from doing it, and trying to disenfranchise us. But I think beyond just voting, we have to get active on all levels.
I've been waiting for you to say it. I've been waiting for you to say it.
We have to get active on all levels of political fighting and political activity. The church must begin to take its role and do what it can do, but the church can't do it alone. We must hold all levels of political, because in other countries, when they held everybody accountable, we saw a shift. See, they can't do what they do to Haiti. They can't do it to Cuba, because Fidel said, "You don't want us, we don't want you. So we're gonna build relationships ourselves with other people, and we're gonna do what we need to do, and we're gonna build within our own country." Haiti has not been able to do that for whatever reason, but we have denied them the resources. We have denied them the resources, and we have denied them help. The Bible talks about how we treat the alien, and that the alien, and when I say, or the person who is not of us, who comes to us for asylum and for help, that when we mistreat that person, we are mistreating God, because again, we're denying them their humanity and their divinity. And so what we're doing, and when you do this,
that can't be right, because we're a Christian nation, and we was founded upon biblical principles, and you can't say that. You can't.
I can't say it. And we were not built upon Christian. We were not built upon Christian principles.
Come on.
We were not built upon Christian principles. That's one of the biggest lies that we ever told. This country was built upon what's the word I'm looking for? Capitalist views.
That's right.
And they sprinkled God, and they sprinkled God in. These people were a part of secret societies that they came over here, and they used their connections with each other and the heads of states from other countries, and they used God as a tool and as a means to get people to buy into the idea of a capitalistic society. But the Bible says you can't serve God and mammon.
That's right.
It's impossible. And so what we're seeing is we're seeing that anybody who challenges their political system has to be eradicated. And the
That's right.
Haitians are a symbol of challenging Eurocentric thought. Cuba is a example of challenging Eurocentric thought. And so, but because Cuba is lighter, they have not, and they won't mess with them. The Cubans are a little bit
That's
lighter
right.
because they look more like the Spaniards than the Haitians. And the Haitians look more like the Africans. And
That's
so
right.
what we're doing is we're seeing this, it's getting this intersectionality. That when we start to allow one form of ism, it expands and it grows into something else. And so the church, until we're able to say, you know what, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. I'm going to fight with you and for you, because since the days of John the Baptist, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, but the violent take it by force. Until we're willing to take it by force and fight for each other and for us all, we're going to keep having problems because we're letting other folk tell us who can be accepted into the kingdom.
You're talking good, brother.
But God said, I came for all people.
That's right,
so,
all of them.
All of them. And so if God really came for all people through Jesus and through the message of Jesus, the Christ message, the Christ motif, this Christ-like thought that all people were valuable to God and to the body of God, because God opens it up to all, not just the Jew, but to the Gentile. And so if God says that all people are worth being saved and worth being fought for, who are we to say that they have no value because they don't look like us?
Come on. Valid
so
point.
What you're seeing is that Haiti cannot be commodified because they cannot use them to do what they want to unless they take. So they want Haiti. I'm just going to put it out there. They want Haiti to fail.
They wanted to.
So then some rich white person go in and buy that island.
There you go. And make it into another resort place.
It becomes another resort, or it becomes another means for America to propagate its own ideas. So no, I don't think that the system works for us if we don't work the system. We have to be willing to fight. See, Asians learned how to do it. So Asians have a whole lot more rights. They came in and they started buying up land and property. Because in America, it is the property owner. If you white and male, you got to look, you automatically, but if you start buying up property, see the Haitians, the other immigrants, they come in and they buy up all types of property. And before you know it, they have 6 or 7 gas stations.
Well, their mind ain't no stuff. Their mind ain't no stuff. Shoes and clothes and all that kind of crap.
Yeah. And so then when you want to make a movement in the city, you got to call their community leaders.
You got to call their
community. They own up the property.
They done bought the whole city. They done bought the whole city up.
Yeah.
They established a whole city within a city.
Within the city.
That's it.
See, and that was the whole point of the 10 Commandments. If we're gonna say that was the whole point of the 10 Commandments. To establish a nation within the nation, so that eventually the nation that has possessed you will have to let you go.
That's right. Right. Because it's more profitable with you not being under my control, because you've shown yourself viable on your own.
You correct.
You're in that space. You've become a commodity. You've become an entity that I have to now compromise with versus control, and that's the thing that we have to, as a people. That's what I've been speaking on. I've been talking about the same thing. We got to begin to, African Americans have to begin to take upon that mindset. We got to learn from these people that's coming in. And it's really sad. It's just really sad.
It really is.
It really is sad that that we're born here, and granted, I understand we don't have all the opportunities and different things available to us, but the movement that we started, that's the other problem. We don't have consistency. We'll start a movement and stop. We got cultural ADHD. I think that's what it's like. It's like one person dies, George Floyd. Then you hear about Ahmaud Arbery. All these people, we move to the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing. And we never just see it all in one box and say, no, this is all the same stuff
Same stuff.
happening at different places.
Different flavors.
That if we begin to just put it all together and deal with it from that standpoint, we can make more grounds. But we get lax. We let up. We want to go get the bag because they tell you and this is the crazy part about it systematically. They know what they're doing. So they go print more money up, even though they know the money itself don't have the same value that they had back in the day. The gold standard is not there. They print more money. And so we're gonna go get this bag. We're gonna take this little stimulus. We're gonna, oh, I'm coming up. And it's like, man, wake up. And the scary part about it, I think it is because we're not as leaders, and I'm talking about the church now. We as leaders, spiritual leaders, we don't correct that behavior. We go buy us a Benz and buy us a Mercedes, and people in our church is still lacking and don't have food to eat. We go and do this is what we're perpetuating as leaders. And so until we begin to, as leaders, begin to do some self therapy and retrospective, introspective viewing of who we are as individuals, until we do that, we cannot affect change, and we cannot even stand up to even make our mouth to say change until we change. And that's the thing. And so and this is not an indictment against everybody, because I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm not saying that. But we need more people that's like the latter. We got a lot of people that's within the mindset. And I'm going to say this too. What I want to say is we can't just think it's going to happen overnight. That's the other thing.
Right.
We have to be willing to take the long journey. We're going to be willing to walk this thing out and see it through. We can't just give up because something didn't happen one way, didn't happen that way. We didn't want the way we wanted and the timing we wanted. We are dealing with years, centuries of oppression, not including the mental trauma and the PTSD that's even been passed throughout genetically, throughout the blood, that we begin to be predisposed to certain anxieties and certain fears. We don't talk about that type of stuff. And so because we don't talk about it, we don't have answers for it. And so people they lose heart. They lose faith. They lose the space of thinking that they as an individual have enough power to affect a whole culture. We don't believe that as individuals. But the Bible says 1 can chase 1,000, 2 can chase 10,000. That's speaking of the influence that we can make if we work together, we come together to rise up. I think one of the greatest things that we can do in this hour, here's a solution, is begin to be, and I'm only speaking from one direction right now in particular, dealing with the spiritual leaders, dealing with the Black church, is we as leaders have to come outside of this. I just can't wait to make it to the great Bible, that trumpet sound. I'm waiting for Jesus to. I need to now take my influence, take my stage, take this sacred desk, and use it to heal the land, heal the community, heal the people that's in the midst of it. And the way I heal them is by teaching them their excellence, teaching them their abilities, even with the power and the capacity of their minds to be able to begin to do that. People hate on the Nation of Islam, but one thing I can say about them is at one point in time, they were very militant and they were organized. They were flowing. Now you got two different sectors going on right there with that. But one thing we can learn from them is the discipline that they have to set forth things and move forward in that, right? To flow in that into the thing. Now I don't agree with everything that they may teach or whatever, but I'm saying that there are things that we can glean from and begin to take upon. Now we have the other sectors. I think the 5% is the different ones. These different sectors of spirituality. There has to be a day that we just lay down the title of what we believe and begin to see each other as humanity and begin to say, you know what, I still need you. You may not believe my same faith, but we're in this same struggle together.
Yeah.
And we begin to come together and begin to affect change, because in numbers, there is power when we come together. So as long as I'm pointing out my differences with you, and it may just be like maybe 3 things that we have in difference, right? I'm just throwing out a number. Out of 100 things that we have in common, because just the fact of me looking at you, you breathing, I'm breathing, that says that we both have a heart, we both have lungs. We got all these things in common already. And I know that's so simple, and I want to make it so practical that we can't miss it. Because if I look at you, I see that you are human. And just the fact that you got breath in your body, which is the breath of God, that when that spark leaves us, that we lose our life, we're no longer alive. Just the fact that you got breath in you, I should respect that breath that's inside of you.
Love that. I love that.
So the Black community has $1.3 trillion worth of expendable income that we use each year.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
It makes us thereabout statistically the 10th largest country in the world if we were an independent country. They're about one of the 10th largest country in the world based upon if we took that money and made it into what they call the gross domestic product, or the GDP, which is how they define economies for countries around the world. Why do I bring that up? Well, because some of the stuff that we have been saying that we've already repeated, that we've already said, I'm not going to beat the dead horse because we've already said it, we've already stated it. But how do we take that $1.3 trillion and affect change? How do we take that? That's one of the questions that need answering. How do we get beyond our issues? Because we have now more Black millionaires and billionaires than we ever had in the world.
That's right.
We have some of the richest people in the world are now coming out of Africa, and they are not white Africans who stole the diamonds.
That's right.
But they are now Black Africans who have created technology companies, and in some ways repossessing and reclaiming what we had before Europeans stole us and took us out of Africa, or took over Africa and claimed it for themselves and their countries. How do we take that 1.3 trillion that's in America to help Haitians? How do we take that 1.3 trillion that's in America and help rebuild African American New Orleans? How do we take that 1.3 trillion dollars with a T and help to rebuild and to solidify African American Atlanta? And then you can take that and apply that to every African American holdout in country.
That's right.
Because what we're doing is we're realizing that the numbers of African Americans in this country statistically are on decline. Latino immigrants and Latino, as we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, is the fastest growing minority group, and is predicted to become the majority in another 50 to 60 years.
Right.
How do we leverage, and yet we still have the most spending power than anybody in the country? How do we leverage that? What do we do? What do we say? And at some point, we as African Americans have to say, you know what? Let's band together with this $1.3 trillion.
That's right.
And I'm not saying leave America. I'm not that dude.
I'm saying buy it up.
That's just what I am saying is come together and start buying some stuff up together.
That's right. That's right.
And starting to affect change, because again, this country was built on white men having power. But before it became white men having power, it was men owning land, because there were some powerful and influential African ascended people. There were some African people who were in Congress before during Reconstruction.
You're right about it.
There were some who actually sat at the table and helped to construct what became the documents of America. There were some who were leading soldiers, Crispus Attucks, and who dies in this revolution that becomes this idea of America, the country. So we were there. We've always been there.
Yeah.
How do we leverage that? Because we can get up and we can talk and we can throw, we can throw aspersions at who's not doing what. And I like a good chastising of the church. I like a good chastising of the political system. But at the end of the day, what are we going to do?
That's right. You're right about it. You're absolutely
how are we
right.
going to leverage this? And how are we going to move forward? And I think the church has to lead that way, because we are, as I started this conversation with, I'm going back to it. We are a spiritual people. The house of prayer, Daddy Grace, understood that Why did Daddy Grace understand that? Because he was Caribbean.
That's right. You're right.
And he understood the power and the value of a dollar. Now, when he started really preaching that and they started to see him moving, they found every reason to get rid of him and to cast aspersions on what he was doing. But before he died, he had built a multinational,
yes, he did,
multi-million-dollar estate with a very little education that he was able to build. But it wasn't just for him. All his people that came to House of Prayer and under him, they started growing. They had houses, they had places to eat, they were able to own businesses through the church. They were able to do this. Marcus Garvey had the same idea with the Black Star line of ships that was going to help transport people, and everybody was going to have a job, and everybody's going to be able to do well, and everybody was going to be able to move. And they did the same thing to Marcus Garvey. They cast aspersions. They found out, and they found legal ways to take them out. Why? Because we have to vote. We have to participate in the system. See, their biggest fear was that King had started to move towards not just rights for Black folk, but he said, white folk, you know what? Y'all just as bad as us if you don't own no land.
That's right.
That's
when the problem came. That's right.
And so then we have the garbage or the sanitation workers movement that he was now starting to lead in conjunction with African American fight for. Look, now he's a threat, because if you can get poor white folk to stand with poor Black folk, so they can start buying land and owning stuff, now we're gonna have a problem, because now we're gonna have a force to reckon with, and now he's gonna start running for office. Yeah. See, the idea of socialism in theory is what scares them. That's why they hate Cuba, because in theory it is great that all people are truly created equal and all people share in the profits of the country moving forward. It scares them because it challenges this capitalistic idea that you're only as valuable as what you can produce.
Who you said a mouthful right there, bro? You said a mouthful right there. Wow.
So how do we leverage this? And so that's all I'm saying. I know we got
to go. I'm in agreement with you 100%, because I've been saying the same thing. That we have to buy. The power we gain is by what we own, and if we own it, let's just say, I'm gonna give this practical step. If we were to take our monies and put them within a trust, and actually have documentations and contracts in place to protect and make sure that it's equal, that it cannot be dispersed, or people can't receive certain things outside of, but this trust is in place to help monetize and actually give order where the finances are going to. If that was the place in our community, we could buy up land. We could buy up these different things, buy communities. I look in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta right now. Go to the west side of Atlanta. The places, go to College Park. The places where we frequent, the places where we stay, and look at the way we're living. Look at how everything's changing, and now it's like, oh, we're not gonna give no assistance to this community. Gonna run around, let them kill themselves, starve them out, and then we go in and do the gentrification. We'll go and buy it for $1, and then we'll move them out. It's the same concept that's been happening. History keep repeating itself. Like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. And in that space, we repeat the same history because we don't know our history. We're not studying it. We're not looking at it to learn from it, and to understand it, to understand that space. So I think what you just proposed, Xavier, was a practical concept that can be executed. It can be put together. And I think that there are those who are educated enough, with even in the financial arena, that if we came together to actually establish these trusts, that way that we won't be taxed to different things on the finances and different things that's going in, and then it's released out on a certain time, every quarter or every month or something, that we can keep up with the phases, to see the growth, the projections. There's enough intelligent people amongst us. All we got to do is just come together. We got to come together, lay down the isms and schisms, and really begin to see that nobody's going to do it for us. And I think that same concept, even with King, is something that still needs to be. And I know we talk about our community a lot on this show, But what I see is I see those who have and those who have not. And I see the impoverished situations that's going on. As a preacher, as a man of God, my heart is for humanity. And I see
Amen.
how these people are being mishandled, and they're being um, uh, marginalized and within this same system that's going on, undereducated. They're in that same, they fall right into the lines of everything else, you know. And I think that if we take upon that same mentality, then we will be a force to be reckoned with. I think we'll be a force to be reckoned with. And you know, it was interesting. There was a conversation that I was hearing. Um, it might have been a hearsay, I'm not sure, but there was some conversation, and Xavier, you might be more privy to this than I am, of the difference between segregation, um, coming in through coming in anti-segregation, being in that space to segregate, to come in to introduce us into these communities versus going in and buying a community for ourselves. What was it? Do you know what I'm talking about? Does that make sense, anything to you?
I know I do know that in Atlanta, because I live in Atlanta, born and raised. I am a native. I grew up and I live here now. Although my parents live in Cartersville, I still live in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this on a regular basis, is that what you're describing is gentrification in reverse.
Right.
They introduce a family or four or five, and then that family comes in and buys up the property at a cheap rate. Well, when that family comes in, those families come in, they then invite other families, and before
Mm-hmm.
you know it, it has changed, and they bought it in, and the people become used to seeing Becky
Mm-hmm.
running down the street or running down the street with her stroller.
Mm-hmm.
And so before long, Becky has multiplied, and now it's a bunch of and where are we at? We've been moved and given vouchers to another community.
Right.
That's what they did to this. I just today I went and spent time in the West Side Park. I'm from Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
had never been to it, had never heard of it, had passed it, didn't know what it was. It's the largest park in Atlanta, but it used to be one of the biggest Black communities in the country. It
Mm.
used to be one of the biggest Black projects in the country.
Wow. Wow.
One of the ladies who's running for mayor now, the white lady, I can't think of her name now. She created the plan, and she's bragging about it. That changed that whole west side of Atlanta.
Wow.
Mm.
Um, and now it's the biggest park in Atlanta, 280 acres of park and wildlife preserve that's built on the backs of African American people who were ran out of their homes because they
Wow.
let crime get so bad, and they said it was crime ready, and we have to do something. And so then they moved those people to Gwinnett County, Cobb County, Clayton County, and they gave them vouchers to do something they'd never been able to do. They thought, and so they bought us out like they've done all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They offered us something that we thought we would never be able to do. So they gave us a voucher for a house that was less valuable than the land we were already living on.
Lord,
Right. Oh
That's
my
why
y'all
God.
that's
listen.
what they wanted to do with Morris Brown.
Jesus. They
They
did.
wanted Morris
Yes.
Brown to fail because Morris
Yep.
Brown has is sitting on some of the most expensive property in the city of Atlanta
Wow.
because it has that view and it sits on the hills, and you can, if you're at the right
That's
spot,
right.
you can
That's
see
right.
clear across Atlanta.
That's
So
right.
you take that college, you break it down, you tear out Morris Brown. Now you have halfway destroyed the Atlanta University Center, and
That's
now
right.
you can build houses, and then you can now control the Atlanta University Center because now all these homes and houses are there. But grace be unto God, and thanks be unto God that Morris Brown was able to come back to a certain point to where they are able to still control most of that land.
That's right. That's good. Because they was having issues with their accreditation.
Well, and so they've gotten to a point where they've gotten a portion of that accreditation back. So they were able to buy that land. And how did they do it? They used the principles that I just got through talking about. All of those AMEs, because that's an African Methodist Episcopal school. The
Yeah.
AME church got together over the last 15, 20, 30 years, and they pumped money as a denomination across this world. All denominations would pump money back into it to buy the land, to pay the taxes, to do all of this stuff, to get people in. And they got somebody in who was able to work the system and knew how to do it. And he was able to get a type of accreditation that now allows them to be able to get monies from the federal government. Well, now that they can get monies from the federal government and they are accredited, the degrees will be worth something again. And now you can start admitting more students in. Now the hope comes in is getting students to come back to it and restoring that legacy so they can continue to build and continue to possess that land. The churches, those churches, they got, one church got 20 million when they built this new dome, this new Mercedes-Benz thing. One church got 20 million. One church got 15. Well, that was more money at one time that although those were some well-to-do churches that they had ever seen at one time.
That's right.
They wanted the land. They bought the land. They gave them the land, and the land was worth so much more because you spent 35 million collectively.
Yes.
But the land is now worth 200 or 300 million.
Right.
Yep.
Y'all, we're gonna have to stop right here. We're gonna have to stop right here, and we're definitely gonna do a part 2. The conversation will continue. This is Tuesday, and the conversation will continue for Thursday. This is some rich conversation. We could go on and on and on, and I am so grateful that Dr. Xavier and Dr. Josh they have really dropped some amazing information for your listening ear. I just pray that you go back, and you listen, to the replay of the broadcast so that you can engulf in what you have heard. I always like to leave a little something before going out. And it's kind of challenging to add to what my brothers have shared this evening. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I just want to add that, we are our brother's keeper. We are our brother's keeper. And just in case you, ladies and gentlemen out there in Radio Land, did not hear me state that the Haitians, a lot of these people you're seeing, they don't have papers. They were taken from them. They don't have papers to identify who they are. So you know what that means? Anybody can do anything with these people. Anybody can do anything they please. They are unaccounted for. Can you imagine? That? Can you imagine even the fear in their minds? They are literally unaccounted for, and they're in a place where they're not wanted. So for weeks and months through their travel, they migrated and ended up in Texas under that bridge. Thousands under crazy conditions. Think about natural stuff that happens, as a human. You know what I'm saying? You have to use the bathroom. So much. You're migrated with men and women and children. So think about a whole portal of the opportunity for sex trafficking. Sexual misconduct. Think about that. And then they coming over here in a state that doesn't want them here. The trading, men and women, because they don't have papers and they're not accounted for. Nobody would miss them. They're gonna be beholden to a debt. Do you understand? People are gonna prosper off of these people. Do you understand? They're gonna be enslaved. Because who's gonna know? Who's gonna know? I just want y'all to sit in that. Talking about inhumane conditions and heinousness in America. Yes, I said it. In America. Our people are in makeshift tents, y'all. Makeshift tents, y'all. U.S. citizens. Some of them. But there's a 5-star FEMA coverage for certain other people. That doesn't include the ones they call immigrants. That's only for the U.S. citizens in that group. Children everywhere, y'all, washing their clothes in dirty river in America. They're battling with respiratory issues. There are medical issues. There are medical issues, y'all. In the makeshift tents, there's no compartment where there's men, there's women, there's teenagers, there's children. Everybody's together. That means those men have access to teenage girls that look like women. These of all kind of men, all kind of people got access to these children and these teenagers. No security. See, they had security on. They had horseback and military, guarding them, trying to keep them from coming over here under the bridge. But see, there's no security now. They're fit there on their own. Grown, musty men are sharing shelter with these children and teenagers and women. Think about COVID. I'm just trying to give y'all a visual. Think about COVID. Think about COVID, y'all. There's no COVID testing for these people. There's no COVID testing for these people, y'all. Don't you think it's some sick folks amongst that crowd? Whew, Lord, have mercy. It's praying time, y'all. And if any of y'all out there are saying, well, that ain't us, that's them. That's them. That ain't got nothing to do with us. No, that is us. That is us. We are our brother's keeper. They're us. They belong to us and we belong to them. We us, y'all. We us. I hope you got a strong visual of what is taking place right now with our people, our community. I hope you heard Dr. Josh and Dr. Xavier talk about our duty in reaching back, and not expecting the government to be our saving grace. How we need to come together collectively and make some things happen ourselves. I hope that whoever's listening to this broadcast, that you're not able to rest knowing that you can do something and not do it. I didn't speak nothing bad on you. It's just that you got to have a heart. You got to have a conscience. You can't be satisfied with your house being okay. Dr. Josh said it, you're for it no more. No, you cannot. That's not okay. That is not okay. Dr. Jamal Bryant and Reverend L. Sharpton, they seen the conditions I just mentioned to y'all. That's where I got my information from. What I just mentioned to y'all, they seen those conditions themselves. Made them sick as a dog. Shaking, just couldn't believe it. Right in here, right in America. They even went up against the skinheads or the Klansmen or whoever these people are. They coming in with their flags and their loud trucks, honking the horns and bogarting, where they're trying to help these people and telling them that we don't want y'all here. This is not where Black lives matter. This is where our lives matter. I seen it for my own. I was watching. Right here in America, y'all. This happened in Texas. So for those of you that want to contribute and help, I got some information for you. You can support ATL for Haiti. ATL for Haiti. Contact FEMA and put in, I need showers. Yeah, I said, these people are not getting showers. They're not getting baths. They're smelling because they can't get access to taking a bath. And some of the women are sick on their monthlies. Some women have had to birth their own babies. For real, this is a true story I'm telling y'all. You can also contact Diaspora, I believe it is, DIASPORA, United for Haiti, at Jesse Wu. Again, Diaspora, DIASPORA, United for Haiti, at the Jesse Wu. Again, support ATL for Haiti. Contact FEMA. I need showers. That's what you put in there. I need showers. The very things that we take for granted, y'all. The very things we take for granted. The very thing we take for granted. Just take it for granted. Small things like a bath, a shower. These people are crying out. Please tell them we just want a shower. I witnessed that there were some that was complaining that they haven't eaten any food in days. What they get their hand on, if they got a kid, they feed it to the child. Right in America, y'all. And I always did say that should never, nobody should ever go hungry. Food should never be something that that people can't get to, that they can't, you know what I'm saying? You got these restaurants and different places, they are throwing food away. They will not give it away. They are throwing it away. That's why people are waiting by the trash cans to get the food. Y'all believe that? I have friends that told me so, managers. They have wanted to give the food away, and they said that they've been threatened by the managers. You give my produce away, then you're going to be fired. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to reallyrealradio.com. I'm Not Okay Why with Coach Deb and the panel. This is part 1. Part 2 will be coming your way on Thursday. Remember to love yourself. Love everybody. And be an example. Have an amazing day. You deserve it.